There we go. So welcome to Connect and Create, and it is 12:30. Thank you all for being here.
Well, for some reason, the last couple of weeks, Facebook is giving me a hard time. So we're trying something new today. We're going to use
Do you guys hear an echo from that?
Our live session. Right. And today will also be recorded.
Yes.
So I'm going to get that set. And
where am I? Huh.
There we go. So welcome to Connect and Create, and it is.
There we go. We're not going to do that. We'll just do our regular recording. I'm going to start that recording over. All right. Well, welcome to Connect and Create. And we have a wonderful guest with us today. We have Gabi Madrid. And I'll share with you briefly. I'm Karina Sephora. And I started Connect and Create a year ago, almost a year ago. We were episode, I believe, 48. It's 48, right? And I began this platform really as a place to be able to interact. I missed being able to go out and going to artist lectures and gallery openings and all that fun stuff we do outside of working in our studios. So I began this Connect and Create. There are a few people that have come on that will be on in the future, and there are a few people that have been on. So thank you, those of you that are in the audience. And there's a few of you that are brand new to Connect and Create. And up until last week, we usually post this on Facebook Live. For some reason, there's some disconnect where it's not working, but that's okay. We've got this recorded and we can do things with that afterwards. So at any rate, Gabi, is there anything you'd like to say to be present today?
This is my first Zoom artist talk, so I'm very excited to be here and be with all of you. And thank you, Karina, for having me. I'm actually in my own studio space, so this is new and exciting to be able to be with so many different people, but we're all in our same spaces.
Great. So are a number of you there that are all from your studio space?
William, and I don't know where Mary Beck is right now, but those are those are some people I'm actually working with, and it goes well within this talk because we're working with materials and trying to do material conservation as well as using a lot of like recycled materials, which is what I love to do.
Awesome. So at any rate, Gabi, thank you very much. I'm going to share a little bit from your professional bio, but I would like to say even before that, Gabi, I was honored to have Gabi work with me as an intern while she was a student at Savannah College of Art and Design, and watched her career move and evolve. And so it's a pleasure to have you here as a guest. So Gabi Madrid is a creative fabricator and mixed media artist. I'm also proud to own one of her pieces. Very excited about that. And she has a background, they have a background in metal fabrication and installation. However, Gabi Madrid's fine art reflects her passion for the environment and found objects. With Muskogee Creek ancestry, the artist's heritage has greatly influenced their art as well as lifestyle. Growing up in Florida instilled a deep appreciation for the beauty of the natural world. And as an adolescent, climbing trees, visiting the beach, and collecting bugs played a role in their admiration for the environment. Throughout college, Gabi's love of the earth, for the earth manifested through environmental activism. Someone's joining, not on mute. Great. Environmental activism on campus. And after graduating from the Savannah College of Art and Design in Atlanta with a BFA in sculpture, Madrid began training under different blacksmiths at the Goat Farm Art Center. Their desire to work with the sustainable materials led them to metal fabrication and woodworking. So without further ado, welcome, Gabi. Thank you so much for being here. And And I see your sister's here with the same name as me. That's always a fun, exciting thing.
Actually, my stepmom.
Oh, your stepmom. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, your stepmom. I knew there was someone in your family with that name.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Gabi, anything you'd like to say before you start your presentation?
I'm just grateful to have my community here to support me and such.
Great. Awesome. Well, you want to start your presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know. I think I got my present mode on.
There you go. Perfect.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Gabi, as Karina introduced me. And just to share a little bit about me, I was actually born in Texas. So I not only did I go to one, but I went to 2 universities. My parents had me when I was in college in their early teens. And I remember one of my earliest memories is actually drawing on, like, in one of my mom's college classes, like on this podium. And, you know, everyone knew me, I was always there. And then I moved to Florida, and, you know, little did I know that that was actually part of where the Muskogee Creek, like, nation was like Georgia and like North Florida. So finding out about that, like, I had a deeper appreciation for my environment and being around there. And most of the time I would actually go out in, you know, to the parks, and I would just start picking up things that called to me. So there were a lot of like twigs and branches and broken glass. And there was this time after, I think it was like Hurricane Matthew or so, like there was broken ceramics everywhere. And there was something about like the beauty of seeing all those things that had, you know, washed ashore that had really resonated with me. And that's actually something I'll talk about later, about a series I created from that. And from a young age, I was always concerned with the environment. And there was this animation that stuck with me when I was a kid. And there was this fish in a pond, and this kid is like brushing his teeth, and he left the water running. And I can just see like the water that's draining from the fish, and the fish calls the guy, and it's like, hey, can you not do that? And so that stuck with me. And I have always been like conservative of water, of my food, of anything I use, because it's like, it's not an infinite resource, it's finite. And that actually translated into my work when I was in high school, and I was exploring like these different mediums of natural assemblage with paper mache and fabric, and how all these things like fit together. And this piece is actually one of my first ones I did make for this series. But just, I started on a very small and miniature scale. And so this piece is probably about like that big or so, but those little scorpions are actually made from paper mache, because I didn't want to use like a lot of plastics. So I was, you know, using like tape and paper and wire to create all those. And this series is called Insouciant Creatures. And it's about how we have this like oblivious nature to our relationship to the world, and how there's usually something impending and lurking around the corner, much like how these bugs, you know, are about to close in on this party. And, you know, I would just go out and I would find these things that called to me in this piece of wood. And that series continued on, and just continued to resonate with me. And then I started to branch out and explore my work more about how, you know, I could further show my appreciation for nature and the beauty of it. And my work took a lot of different forms. This piece in particular was dealing with grief. I had a friend that passed in college, and so I created this book to like harness that energy. And this was like an old journal that I had, so, you know, reusing in that way, just so I can get the most out of my materials. And that's actually what has like allowed me to save a lot of money in my work and just do what I love. And So I was in Savannah for a little bit, and then I moved to Atlanta, and that was in like 2017. And I went up here to finish my degree in sculpture, and that's actually how I got connected to a lot of people at the goat farm. And I've been so grateful to be up here. And I just remember seeing so much trash when I would walk, from the SCAD building to the High Museum, and it really struck me. And it was like I had never experienced that before. And so I wanted to make some work about it. And it was actually one of my installation classes that we had to use one material for the entire installation. So I chose plastic because it was so abundant. And little did I know that my attempts to collect all this plasticware would actually turn into a performance piece. And how it looked was I would sit in front of the trash can in the cafeteria, and I would instruct people to give me their, used plastic forks, knives, and spoons. And I got a little funny looks. Everyone was like, "What are you doing with this?" But it created like a space for a conversation to open up about how much plastic we use. And this was one of the pictures I took, because this bathtub is probably only 3 days worth of like people using that. So I had, I think, 2 bathtubs full just from like, a week of collecting. And so I started to collect more. And through this, I created a lot of different installations that you had to like physically walk through this like recycled material, this trash. And this was an ocean piece that I made. It went up along the wall, and it had like this waveform to it. And it was a lot of fun this was a collaboration with another artist, Mallory Lundquist, that, she made, or they made animals from this. And so we have this like fish that we made from Capri Suns, and it had a very shiny effect, a little starfish. But we were trying to get the most out of these materials. And there were even like, a sea turtle, and we put like a little plastic ring around it because, our trash goes somewhere, and it ends up usually in our environment. And a lot of the times, like the foods we eat will contain like small microplastics. And what's even like more fascinating is that in many salt brands, like they can't distinguish between what is salt and what is a microplastic. Like we don't have a way to do that yet. So we are actually consuming this. Like we are what we eat. So we're creating this idea. And based on that, I actually created this other piece that was dealing with like there's plastic in our food. And this had like a whole like picnic and bar with the drinks. And so people actually thought like I had brought food in for everyone. And as they went to go look at it, they realized there was something off about it. And this was probably one of my favorites. There were like little earbuds for the black olives, and computer keys, phone keys for mushrooms, and everything like that. And the hamburger was probably one of my favorites. There was like this like nasty like old like Scotch-Brite sponge that was in there for like the lettuce, tomato crap. So I had a lot of fun experimenting and seeing where I could pull these like materials from and get them as close as possible. And the most important thing for me through this whole process was like being responsible for what happens to these materials afterwards. And, I even had a teacher that we were doing silk screen printing, and she's like, you can't just pour down the paint down the sink. Like you need to let it dry out and then dispose of it. And so that's actually how I found the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials. And this is through Live Thrive Atlanta, which is a nonprofit organization that fosters a community that creates healthy and sustainable environments. And so their initiative is Charm, and they are really great for recycling obscure things. tires, mattresses, plastic bags, straws. There's like a few things that aren't accepted, which are like wax cartons, coat hangers, alkaline batteries, wood and carpet materials, joint compound. But the other great thing is like, they're still open during COVID. And this has allowed me to continue to do my practice and be responsible in the materials that I use so that I can, not have that weight on me that I'm using this, but I'm not going to be able to, dispose of it properly. And this was another one that I've recently come across, and it's Life Cycle Building Center, and it's here in Atlanta. And they're also a nonprofit that they'll take donations of building materials, and it takes it from the waste stream and directs it back to the community. And people are allowed to come in and shop through, and you can find like granite countertops and doors and different things to create your own works of art. They've diverted over like thousands of pounds of materials, and a lot of it is reused. And that's one thing that I really love about it. It's like communities helping communities to continue to go further, because a lot of this I've seen, it hurts me to see what is all thrown out sometimes. And Paint Care is another really great organization. Now, they only operate in like a few states, but their website is paintcare.com, and it's like Colorado, Washington, California, Connecticut, and a few other ones. But they'll take anything from like, primers, paint, stains, sealers, clear coatings, shellac, varnish, but they don't accept like aerosol cans or solvents. And I mean, it's just like you can take it there and be dropped off and you don't have to worry about it. And Charm also is really great about that. There was this project that I need to like just paint some white walls. And so I stopped there and I asked them, can I have some paint? And that's what's really great about these places that are committed to recycling. It's not like they're going to tell you no. It's like, okay, cool. Like you're actually going to use it and it's going to go further. And one of the first places I ever went that had like an reclaimed art materials and stuff was Starlandia in Savannah. And if you've never been, I would invite you to go. It is in this cute little area down Bull Street, and they have almost anything you can think of. There's like fabric scraps, leather scraps, skull bee. And there was like a real need for this in that city because, there were a lot of students that would, only use like half of the materials, and then if they threw it out, it wouldn't go to use. And Starlandia actually offers like a credit program to where you can bring your materials and you'll get store credit for that. And you can spend that in the store. And the local one that's very similar to that is Scraplanta. And they've been impacted due to COVID-19. So they don't have an actual space, but they're looking at furthering that this year. And it's basically, nonprofit organization that collects discarded materials, and they do a lot of community events and workshops. And, even if maybe you're not, in the creative field, but you're still like wondering, how can I, be responsible for that? Like just getting familiar with your local ordinances about what is recycled and what is not recyclable. Oftentimes like paper, I particularly prefer to put napkins in compost, and plastics. I don't know if you guys know this, but plastics actually contain the little number on the bottom, which doesn't indicate that it's recyclable. It just indicates the number, the type of plastic that it is. And, from those like Tide bottles to like small water bottles, like all of those have a different number. And oftentimes metal is totally recyclable, a lot of steel cans, and you can even take those to to the scrapyard. That's what I do for my own practice. If I have, extra materials, little pieces of scrap I can't actually use in a project, I'll take it to a metal recycling center, and I can even get paid for that. And there's a lot of other places that accept these, like Publix, Lowe's takes light bulbs. Sometimes they have phone recycling centers, and my mom was always adamant about doing that because e-waste is very harmful to the environment we're in. And so Best Buy also accepts large electronics, and so does Charm. But if you're already going to the grocery store, you can take your plastic bags and egg foam cartons there. And for me, this is just something I'm very passionate about. And I remember this quote from the Lorax, and it's unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And it's we are the catalyst. We start that change by just implementing small things in our lives, like carrying around a cup versus, a plastic bottle. And as part of this in my own practice, working with artists that, are doing that in their practice and seeing what that looks like on a larger scale. And this is someone I'm currently working with, William Massey, and this is one of his Atlanta Beltline pieces. So I don't even remember how large this is, but just you can do so much with it, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. There's a lot of different ways to incorporate these. And Zach Freeman in Jacksonville, Florida, when I was moving, I actually called him and I was like, hey, I have all these materials I don't want to throw out. Can you take them? And he was more than happy to. It is artists helping artists. And someone I met at the goat farm, actually, Karen Glass, her work is stunningly beautiful. And she has the Zero Waste Karen Glass. That's her brand. And she takes these secondhand textiles and remakes them into new garments that add value to just the piece. And any last remaining scraps that she has, she'll use them for tags or make them into paper. So it's using everything to its fullest. And then Sophia Treadle, takes garments that might have gone out of fashion and creates them into new outfits that are stylish. And there's a local artist, Ashton Bird, and he takes old construction materials and turns them into these installations. And it's just, it doesn't have to look a certain way, just getting creative about what you have at your disposal. And one of my favorite artists, Justin Rabido, he's passed, but this is one of his pieces, I believe in New Orleans. And it had all these old windows and pieces of wood, and he would go dumpster diving to get these. And he made a lot of wooden structures that, they were on the wall, they were off the wall, just everywhere. And in my own practice, I've continued to gather materials, and I go to antique stores, buy secondhand, and I have these trays and all these little trinkets that I have that really just contribute to this work. And that's been really fun to explore and to see how much I can use and go further in this. And this is my website. If you are interested in seeing more of the work I do, gabimadrid.com, or you follow me on Instagram, which is Gabi Madrid Art. And that's just some of the work I do. Does anyone have any questions? Anything they want to ask?
You can either raise your hand, or we don't have a big group. You could come off mute and ask your question. It's great seeing your work inside that context, Gabi.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone want to come off mute and ask a question or so?
All right, we've got a question from Betsy in the chat. I'll share it. I love your art. It's a comment more than a question. So thank you, Betsy. Anything else you'd like to share about the work that you're seeing, Betsy? Let's see.
I saw Shannon's hand go up.
Oh, Shannon. Okay, great. Shannon.
You have great knowledge of materials and sourcing, and how much does that like feed into your actual work process in terms of your research and your process of creating?
So it really depends on like what I'm creating. Most of the time, like it's things I already have or own. So like I created like my own paper, and I use like these old picture frames I had gotten from the trash, and I had gone sourcing out for window screens so I could like pull it up from the water. And the best part was I actually used political mail for this. I was so tired of getting it over like November area, and I just put it all in a blender from the thrift shop and added my water. And my mom had actually sent me this jar of turmeric in the mail, and it exploded. So I have this whole box full of like turmeric, and I'm like, what do I do with this? And I added some to the water mixture slurry, and made yellow paper. And it's just like it's so ingrained in me just to like be like, what can I use around me? And I guess that's how I source my own materials. But working with like William, we went to the dumpster to go find some wood. So it's like using what is there in your environment and using it to its fullest. Does that kind of answer your question? Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here, maybe like 30 feet from you in a different place. And I'm staring at behind our studio at South River Art Studios, Trash Mountain. It like looms over our studio. And yes, like I'll go to the dumpster and find the things we need. Like we're working on now a box of metal, and we don't have enough metal. So what do? Our convictions are we don't need to use something new. There's plenty of old stuff. And we do that, and we source as much as we can. But like, no, I just want to know, my question is, how do you feel when you see Trash Mountain and you know that no matter how many trips that you make or I make into or out of the dumpster or to the scrapyard, that like our lifetime will probably not even touch a week's worth of dump trucks. There's one now. A week's worth of dump trucks. Trash. We won't even affect that. How do you think about that? How do you come to grips with that? It seems so hopeless sometimes. I just want to hear your mentality on how big of an issue this really is and how can we actually do something about it.
That's really great, and I'm glad you bring that up, because I've had that own struggle. I'm like, I'm not making a dent. I can collect as many plastic forks, knives, and spoons, and it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But there's someone I listen to, Charles Eisenstein, and he talks about, just tending to your own part of the garden, because that's what you can physically touch and create and build in that little part of the garden. And, if someone can see you doing that, then they start to tend to their own garden. And in return, it just starts to like spread out everywhere. Because, I might be passionate about, the orcas and whaling, but I'm not near the ocean. I can't do that. I could drive all the way out there, but it's like, where can I make the most impact in my own community and environment that will make a difference? And I have people that call me, from college, and are like, I still recycle because of you. And I'm like, that's so great. Like, it is that small little shift that actually creates that wave, like a ripple.
That's good. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Mary Beck, was there anything for you?
I don't think so. I think I actually had this similar thought, is kind of how can we make it is overwhelming. So how can we each, feel okay just doing the little bit that we can? So you answered it pretty much.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm Becky. I made a previous comment.
Yeah.
I got into puppetry, and there's a big area of puppetry called found objects. And I've just made puppets out of all kinds of crazy things. I have a big dragon out of 5 feet of dryer hose that I picked up at a yard sale. And I go to yard sales and thrift stores all the time and just make stuff out of different things. And I've seen the most fabulous puppet shows out of like there was this Prince Spaghetti, and that was the prince in the puppet show. I'm just saying there's it offers a lot of creativity, and it's really great when you translate. I think people will think about it. So it's like you can only tend your part of the garden is really true. But art and trash are great combinations, I think. So thanks so much, and you're quite an inspiration.
Thank you, Betsy. That does mean a lot.
Great.
Catherine, do you want to say something? You're on mute. You just have to unmute.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed your presentation, and as someone that's also concerned about the environment, it's wonderful that a lot of people are now, and I think that will make a difference. And so I thank you for what you're doing for us all.
Yeah. Thank you. You guys can hear the train in the background.
I used to live on a farm from 82 to 84. And you never really get used to that train at 2 a.m.
Not at all. Karina, was there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Gabi, do you what do you see in the future with your work? I know you work with other artists, and I'm lucky to be one of those artists that you work with part-time. And what would you say you see as the future for the work that you would like to produce? What do you see as something that would be fulfilling for you? Like, what's a big goal that's out there in the world?
I've had these ideas for installations because there's something about memories that, that's part of like my series, Documentation of Life, that, people see like a little trinket and it brings back a memory of like, oh yeah, like I had this little thing when I was a kid. And so creating like a string installation that has like all these little objects hanging down, that's, a direction I want to go, and making more book sculptures using paper. But I feel like being like a jack of all trades, like I can go in any direction. I just need to, start down one path and see where that leads. And partnering with other artists that are metal fabricators to create sculptures that can be outdoors, but also incorporate like rocks and flowers, like, because I still am very much drawn to those materials and how that fits. And even this little idea for like a coffee table that has like, these like rocks and flowers all in it, so it can, incorporate both those things. So.
Great. A live growing coffee table.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Box garden? No. Oh, around the sculptures, around the outdoor sculptures. But you also want to make a coffee table.
Yeah, coffee table.
It would be cool to have it like a terrarium.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you could repurpose a terrarium and build a table around it. Great. Well, thank you. And it looks like we have a question from George. George, would you like to come off mute and ask your question or comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm kind of new to the Zoom. I'm learning a little bit about it today. So I was interested, Gabby, in if you could talk a little bit about your work with Karina.
Yeah, sure. For those of you that don't know, Gio was someone I worked with in Jacksonville and is also a blacksmith. So working with Karina actually has allowed me to see what it takes to like work full time as an artist. Like there's a lot of teaching, like welding classes and public sculpture projects, and having this all fit within time for yourself and just having a social life. And I love, she also has her paintings, which she's sitting, in front of one. But I learned a lot just about processes, and there's like 3 P's in blacksmithing: precision, power, and productivity. And so like that was hammered into me about, you need to be precise when you strike, and then you can think about the power behind it, and then you can get into a rhythm, and it really creates that productivity. Yeah, I think it's been like a great thing just to be able to learn. We did like fireplaces, made a lot of little fern things. There's one of my boots that has like an impression of one of those materials in it because I stepped on it by accident. Safety first. But does that answer your question, Gio?
It sure does. Yeah. I also really fascinated with your take on environment, and you're teaching people about it by example and literally. So that's really great.
Thank you.
Really proud of you, kiddo.
Great. Betsy, is your hand up from before? Or did you have another question, Betsy Stark? I think it was from before. Well, so Gabi, I wanted to also speak to, like, just because we have a couple more minutes, I myself have a really good friend, and he's kind of like at the forefront of recycling in fashion industry, and not only recycling, but environmentally conscious.
Mhm.
And we were having a conversation one day, and I started thinking about my own work. And even though I, as far as like you could say like impact, I think I would say I have like a small impact, right, in buying new materials. But I started thinking like, well, what could I do? How could I go about what I do inside my business to be more environmentally sound, other than being a pack rat and not throwing things away, which is my go-to technique. I don't want to put things in the trash, so I keep them. But I don't advise that because it creates a cluttered environment. But anyway, on a more serious note, I started really working with a lot of recycled metal. And there used to be a scrapyard right around the corner from my studio. Now it's a very fancy loft called Star Metals, which the irony of that, the owner was always like, there's not going to be a loft here over my dead body, So, I mean, I used to just go there sometimes for inspiration and pick through and collect stuff. At any rate, so I'm going down a different road, but there are a number of sculptures that I made that were made all from recycled material. And what I found, and I loved the inspiration of finding those colors and being able to work with them and how they worked a little differently. And what I found for myself was that the using those recycled materials worked really well for my indoor sculptures, but not so great for the outdoor sculptures, because as beautiful and bold as those colors were, I would sort of torch cut, around them, and you'd have that beautiful, but they started changing over time. And so, I would get questions back from people who had collected them, like, well, the color is changing, so I kind of got off, I don't want to say I got off track, but I put that on the back burner. we have a sculptor who's from Cuba who just moved in. When I say put on the back burner, I kind of like stopped doing that as a, for two reasons. One, it was hard to get the materials that I was so easily accessible. And then two, they didn't have the lifespan that I wanted for an outdoor sculpture, because they would really just go to rust after a while. And I've been reinvigorated about repurposed materials because I have a new neighbor who's from Cuba, and he has been building this amazing piece. And we had a great conversation about repurposing materials. And he gets cars, hoods of cars is his main. So he's got all these stacks of hoods of cars. So I'll have to introduce you to him. And he has a show that's going up that I believe opens at Clark Atlanta on Monday, on the 15th. So yeah, how do you pronounce his name, Shannon? It's Wile? Will-I, yeah, Will-I, thank you. Yeah, so he now is my neighbor, and he's, and our friend Gerardo was here yesterday helping to install. And so and so we had this great conversation. He's like, you just can't find those colors, the bright, vibrant greens and the bright reds and whatnot. So anyway, Gabi, I'll have to introduce you to him. And those of you, I think they're having like a timed ticket type of thing to go to the show at Clark Atlanta. So I'm just putting a little plug in for my new neighbor. But I've had some great conversations, and I've been re-inspired myself for my indoor pieces. I realized that what I was trying to do with them didn't work so well for the outdoor, but it really was inspired out of having a conversation with a friend who works with environmental on a global scale. So I just wanted to, I don't think we got to talk about that, but I thought I'd just share that, both of those things with you. So anyone else have any thoughts or comments as we start to wrap up here?
Well.
Hello, good afternoon. Hey, Gabi. Great presentation, glad I could be here. And so over my shoulder, I actually have one of your pieces, Life of the Machine. And yeah, that one really spoke to me. I mean, so I'm wondering, how did all these individual pieces speak to you? Like, how do you determine what's trash? This needs to stay in the dump and this needs to go in a tray, And I guess that goes for all the artists, but yeah, particularly you, Gabi.
It's just like,
and what's art?
And that's something like you have to tune in for yourself, because like I'll be walking down the road and I'm like, okay, I don't like that, and then something will just catch my eye and I'm like if I have a thought, should I pick it up? I pick it up then. And that's actually like what resonates, is like it's being in tune with like the source or higher power, yourself, like whatever you want to call that. And people get that out of different experiences. Whether or not they're exercising or reading a book or being in the zone. And that's kind of why I have so many different materials I work with, because that connection to the source always changes. And that's how I started my meditative wrappings, was I felt connected to the source doing that. And so that's why it's like when Karina asked me, what's next, I'm like, I don't know. It's a calling. I have to go look for it, but I know I have to take a step in that direction. But the trays will always be one of my favorite series. Karina, you're on mute.
Sorry, there was some studio noise in the background. Is the tray that you have, is that one of the ones that was at the Madison, the show at the Madison?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, that was, he has the first one of the Life of the Machine series I made. Solomon Chase.
Can I have it autographed?
I think I definitely have, like, there's a little sticker on the backside of it, which I need to get like a little stamp thing. That's the next thing I'll make in my studio, is a little like a brand thing to heat up and brand stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Yeah, it's great seeing everyone.
Yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here. It is 1:15, and I want to let you know we have a great docket of people who will be sharing. Honestly, I'm so proud of ourselves. We have people booked all the way through March 30th. That's never been done before. And Shannon, you're one of the people. I'm really looking forward to hearing you speak. You've been a guest on this show many times, and I look forward to hearing your conversation. Anything you want to say quickly about that, or do you want to wait till the day? Wait till the day. I did put you on the spot. That's fine. And if you're in the audience and you have a conversation that you would like to share, if there's a story you'd like to share about your art or what's important to you or your creative journey, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll put my, the best is to either email me directly. I will put that in the chat right now. Or you can go to the website if you want to receive my weekly newsletter. We always list the artists and speakers that will be on the Thursday. The newsletter goes out, and we list who's going to be speaking on that the following Tuesday. So you can go to contact on the website, or you can just send a direct email if you would like to speak after March 30th. So, and we do occasionally have people who have something that comes up and we need someone to fill in. So at any rate, love to hear your story. I miss being out and being face-to-face at artist lectures and art openings. And this is something that I created to be able to have it be a platform and a space that people can come together and share and connect and create. So thank you all for being here. Gabi, what are your last words?
I hope to actually be able to meet everyone in person again.
Yay.
At some point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have to hop off, but bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for being here. Come back next week.
Bye,
Thank
Gabi.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Serena.